Consciousness turns a major corner as human emotion is suddenly weighed as more important than ideas, thoughts, or consequences. Jupiter has recently moved into Cancer, and we're worried about the future more than we're thinking about the future. Keep streaming for all the details. Hello and greetings to my galactic family and earthly neighbors. Welcome to Namaste Today. I'm your host, Sante Christopher Witecki, your cosmic reporter and historical recorder, here to talk about the ascension process week after week using the planets. And that brings us to our step astrology of the week. This week, on Sunday, June 22nd, two of the greatest powers in human consciousness, which is the Sun, self-love for love's sake, and Saturn, self-love for control's sake, come crashing together, making us make a choice between control over love or control with love. On Tuesday, the Sun conjuncts Jupiter, a big event, by the way, the Sun conjuncting Jupiter, a conjunction that normally would have happened already in Gemini, but was skipped. We'll talk about the consequences of that in today's show. And on Friday, the new moon apex at step 4 Cancer means emotional confidence in oneself may be imploding or bursting into a black hole. It depends on the place you take with your heart. But before we dive into the whole range of emotions we're going to feel this week, let's take a look at the week's moods and your zodiac weather. This zodiac weather is from Saturday, June 21st to Friday, June 27th, 2025. This week's zodiac weather is sponsored by Meli Garcia. Meli coins herself as a creative relaunch best friend forever, helping mystics and multi-passionates go from not yet to launched by shaping soul-aligned brands and turning their gifts into offers, powered by human design and AI. Her workshop, From Soul to Feed, will help you write content that feels true, sounds like you, and actually lands, without spending hours stuck in your head or endless drafts. Scan the QR code now to learn more about Meli Garcia and her upcoming 90-minute workshop, From Soul to Feed. As we take a gander at the weekend ahead, the Sun will move from 0 to 1 Cancer, opening us up now to our feelings and perhaps causing moments where we need shelter. Let's drill down. On Saturday, it's partly sunny with a chance of storms. Step 0 means that Pluto rules the day. The veil is thin from both realities, and you might be thin on patience with yourself or others. The result is that your feelings may need to release. With the moon in Taurus, this release must be honored and cherished and make you feel better, not worse. The root intention affirmation for the day is I feel everything. The strategy title is Mapping Out Emotional Worthiness. And the whole day may have a little essence behind it. Early in the morning at 4 a.m., Mercury in Cancer, trine the North Node in Pisces. This called forth all the feelings in the way of ascension. On Sunday, it showers the chance of rainbows. Step 1 indicates the Sun rules the day, which means self-love is the rhythm of ascension. The root intention affirmation is I feel my heart. And the strategy, responding to my feelings by loving and believing in myself. The moon continues in Taurus, so feelings will ground you, and at the same time, any type of nurturing will further ground you. And there's a couple of aspects worth noting. Temperamental Mars in Virgo will be sextiling Jupiter at 2 Cancer, meaning there's a little bit of an agitation of all feelings underneath the hood. Then, testing that self-love, at 2:35 p.m. Eastern Time, the Sun will square Saturn at step 1 I love, Aries. It may come off as a little competition between your heart and ego, answering for yourself which knows best. As we take a sneak peek at the upcoming 5-day week, the arc of the week brings us from step 2 Cancer to step 6 Cancer. You can summarize this as getting along with yourself and learning how to nurture those terrible twos. On Monday, it's showers but breezy. Step 2 means that the Sun is ruled by the moon, and this is the Grand Master step of Cancer. You are exploring and developing an emotional base tone that will serve you for approximately a year. Energetic shifting happens before you wake up, speaking to the Sun squaring Neptune at step 2 Aries at about 4:28 a.m. East Coast time. This square creates vibrational questioning between the heart and the spiritual intuition. The quiet questioning triggers you into deeper questioning in awake time, and the day is spent transforming emotions into something solid. The root intention affirmation is, I feel mature. The strategy, emotional growth leads to powerful shifts in believing in myself. On Tuesday, it's sunny and believing. Step 3 indicates that Jupiter rules the day. You are now learning and feeling how to believe in yourself in a higher capacity. The root intention affirmation is, I feel, I know. And our strategy, feeling through the new thoughtware. And just before launch at 11:07 a.m. East Coast time, the Sun will conjoin Jupiter, which is a quantum punch of energy, calling for you to find just that truth, what your heart truly believes about you, despite evidence or history. The day ends with you believing, but questioning your future. On Wednesday, we predict the day to be sunny and eclipsy. Step 4 is the active step, meaning Uranus rules the day. Expect minor breakdowns and breakthroughs regarding yourself with yourself emotionally. The moon coasted through Cancer last night and very early in the morning declares a new moon at step 4 Cancer at 6:31 a.m. This new moon emotional conjunction with feelings in the heart calls for you to relate to yourself emotionally as if you do love yourself. This commandment creates a tidal wave of emotion that will go out to everyone in your immediate vicinity, so make sure to give yourself time and space if you need it. On Thursday, it's cloudy with a chance of smiles. Step 5 indicates Mercury rules the day. You're now mindful of what's been going on and mindful of how you feel. The root intention affirmation is, I feel I agree with myself. The strategy, to open to emotional limits I do not yet understand. And the planets all invest their own havoc. Early in the morning, Mercury in Cancer will sextile Uranus at 29 Taurus, creating some intellectual questioning. At 10:11 East Coast time, the Sun will sextile Mars at step 5 Virgo, creating tension between the ego can do and the heart love to. And then as an afternoon treat, Mercury will ingress into Leo, shifting the mind to think self-love before anything else. And then on Friday, it's cloudy and feeling. Step 6 means that Venus rules the day. We're opening up to accept and receive energy now. The root intention affirmation is, I feel I have arrived. The strategy, the mind makes space for the feeling of self-love. And just before midnight, Mercury will trine Saturn at step 1 Aries, meaning as you go to bed, this self-love thing, it's time to take seriously.
What if marketing could be a spiritual practice? Not pressure, not perfection, just resonance. You're not stuck. You're just trying to channel a soul message through a Canva template or a strategy that is not built for your energy. I'm Lily, your creative freelance BFF. I guide mystics and multi-passionates from not yet to launch using human design and AI soulful systems. This isn't just theory. It's the process I've refined with 40+ clients and creative collaborators. I'm excited to share more with you at Unite the Night.
This week's show is sponsored by Salute Sante. Founded by Valentine and Nanette Humor, Salute Sante is the industry leader in creation and distribution of the healthiest of oils. They combine the highest quality grapeseed oil with award-winning packaging to provide a healthy alternative to all other oils. Salute Sante grapeseed oil proves that food prepared in this pure, delicate oil can only taste great and be good for you too. I actually tried some of their flavored oils at Unite the Light, and it was light and it was refreshing. So I encourage you to try also. Check them out. Well, looking at the dynamics of the planets and transits, everything does orbit around the sun. And the sun energetically, my friend, is what represents our heart. And so we always look at the sun first to see how will our heart change in degrees or in, let's say, temperature. This week, the sun literally enters step 0, Cancer, tomorrow, which means our heart dives into the consciousness of our feelings. And by the end of the week, the sun will end at step 6, or the week will end at step 6, which is whether or not we accept our feelings or we do not accept our feelings. Now, the hard part here is going to be that a lot of people do not live in their feelings. And so they'll be forced to feel their feelings this week. So if you have someone who is not good at emotions, not good at self-soothing, if you have been codependent with someone, always helping them, you're going to find it very hard to help them and help yourself at the same time. This is where we're sort of being told we've got to get through this. And God Universe is not concerned about our abilities because Jupiter is also in Cancer. Jupiter moves from Grandmaster step 2 Cancer to step 4 Cancer. Now that step 4 is a doozy. We'll talk about that. But that means that our heart will explore everything from how we feel about ourselves, how we feel about our beliefs in ourselves, how we feel in our belonging in ourselves, how we feel the way we think about ourselves, and our feelings about whether or not we like ourselves in the first place. So this is a whole do I care about myself question. Are we going to feel through and do I care about myself? Do I feel my caring, or do my feelings feel neglected or abandoned? I want to give you a little hint here. If you are a person who feels abandoned by the world, you have absolutely abandoned yourself. I promise it. You may not know where it is. You might need some help with a guidance person to help you get to where you abandon yourself. But most people abandon themselves by letting themselves sit in pain. If you were in pain for more than 24 hours, you have abandoned yourself. You've let the baby in you just sit there in a dirty diaper crying in the corner for a whole day, for 2 days, for a week. This has a great effect even when you're an adult. So we're going to be pulling up this mud, basically. But the good news is Jupiter is right there. Jupiter brings the did you know consciousness. So as the baby cries, Jupiter says, did you know a car ride might make you feel better? And so if you listen through your feelings, you'll find that you are inspired. You'll find people have ideas. You'll find that you have solutions coming to your fingertips. So again, the human race is having a hard time, but there is a box of Kleenex thanks to Jupiter. Now, Mercury this week starts on a more dramatic tone. Mercury starts at step 20 Cancer and moves all the way to step 0 Leo. That means that as we start Cancer, our mind is already 20 steps ahead. That's a problem in some regards if you don't know how to manage that. Because if your mind is 20 steps ahead, you may forget to focus on today. You can think 20 steps ahead, but if you're not aware of how that will help you today, it's not worth it. And if you live in the future, then you'll never get to the future. You have to actually live in the present. So the mind has to be reminded to pay attention to how you feel today. The mind has to be disciplined all week long to pay attention to today. And Mercury will hit 0 Leo, which means by the end of this transit, your heart might become a little sensitive. So with that, there's a lot of emotional stirring going on in the early degrees of Cancer, which means in how you feel about yourself. The last thing I'll say about Cancer is just that you may want to blame other things outside of you. And that may be true. It may be things outside of you make you feel bad. Maybe the weather that makes you feel bad. It may be your neighbor that makes you feel bad. But in this stage of Cancer, of the Cancer stage, we only want to focus on nurturing our inner child, nurturing our baby. You will get to the point of dealing with them, but it's not now in this first chapter. Now, moving on to Taurus. Taurus is an interesting energy. Maybe I say that because I am one. But Taurus ultimately is how we package everything so that it comes to full materialization. In fact, I've recently changed the name of Taurus from I manifest to I materialize because I think it's a bit more descriptive of the truth. But in Taurus, we do have a savior, Venus. Venus is our capacity to open up and take things in. Venus is at step 14 Taurus and moves to step 21 Taurus. What that means is we take in this week the capacity to envision and create a different life. We are also opening up and we're actually feeling that there are choices. We feel an openness to taking it into our own hands. We feel an openness into making it happen ourselves, which is what Taurus energy is, the ability to build something, create something that will serve you as a tool or a foundation. So we are opening up and calming, and really we are being shown an alternative path where things would be okay. We're being shown that. Doesn't mean you're paying attention, but we are being shown it, so look for it. However, Uranus in Taurus is at step 29 the entire week. That is an agitator. That is actually a force in nature, of conscious nature, that is calling for a tornado to tear up the limitations we have held on ourselves, particularly material limitations. So material limitations would be 7 families own most of the world, right? And not the rest of the money isn't around. Material, limitations may be that even though you work your butt off, your credit rating never goes up. So these things that keep us back financially will be a huge irritant this week. But you have to also know that that force of irritation is actually the force of inspiration. The irritation leads to the inspiration. The irritation leads to the innovation. So when it comes up, see it as an invitation to innovate. Try not to see it as the universe bringing you down, because it's not. It wants to bring down the dark stuff and let you fly high. Now, the real irritant is, Aries. In the Aries consciousness, we have a lot of agitation going on. First of all, we have the dictator Saturn in there. And Saturn is dictating and going around and acting like it's boss of everything, particularly of the heart. So Saturn at Aries 1, step 1, means that you have the power to take responsibility to love yourself. You have the power and authority to be amazing to yourself. You can be the best parent to your heart you've ever had. But that same energy can be a real bastard if you don't let it, if you don't focus on it. Like Saturn can turn on your heart, against your heart, be mean to you, cut you out, cut off your heart. So this is, again, God universe gave you this body that creates reality, but she is not going to tell you how to drive. You have to figure out to not be a jerk to yourself and not shut yourself down, and use that knife for something practical instead of cutting up everything that you value inside yourself. Don't cut yourself up. It's only going to hurt worse. Neptune is also in Aries. It's step 2, which is amazing. I mean, these two have been together. I can't remember the actual number of years, but it's been before Christ. They have not been together at this degree since before Christ. And that was a Robbie Hunt, a discovery, by the way. That's huge. That means we don't get these two together very often. And what this is doing is with Neptune at 2, you actually have, it's almost like you have access to every feeling you've had in past lives. You can feel every feeling you've ever felt ever. Now, that can be dangerous in the sense that you can add stuff from the past that doesn't really belong here. It's just coming up and showing you and feels like these. And we feel really bad about this, says Neptune. And we feel really bad about this, says Neptune, for something else, because Neptune is pulling in all the times you felt that way in history. But I believe, and I'm an optimist, that Neptune's showing you that because it's time for it to end. That's why you have Saturn right next to it saying, this ends. It stops right now. Because Saturn is really holding the baby, which is your inner child. Saturn is being the father here, and Neptune is being the mother. So you have a Pisces mother and a Capricorn father. Very common, by the way. But that said, we can't look at these as bullies on ourselves. See, we've been taught to use Saturn energy to judge ourselves. We've taught to use Neptune energy to deceive ourselves. But they have other applications. They can actually be our leaders and our healers. And so this week, it's important that your Saturn takes care of your heart. Make sure it's looking out for your heart. Don't let anything come across it. And by the way, the only threat to your heart right now is you. All right. If something bad happens, either you let the baby know, you walk in the nursery and you tell the baby, hey, do you know what happened over here in Los Angeles? It's you that's telling the baby this stuff, not necessarily the TV or anyone else. So we've got to see where the real power is. It's in how you treat yourself. But Saturn and Neptune is encouraging you to get strong. If you come on the side of your heart and on the side of your feelings, you're going to feel incredibly strong. If you feel weak and you feel powerless, it means you have not been on the side of your feelings or your heart. And it's up to you to shift that focus. Now, Chiron is at step 26, Aries, far ahead. And Chiron is the planet of Saturn. So kind of way, see how Saturn controls stuff? Saturn's ruling step 1 this week in Aries, and Saturn's also ruling step 26. And step 26, by the way, is the Grandmaster Saturn degree. So in essence, if you decide that you're going to love yourself, you can also devote yourself to a life where that turns into a utopia. So Aries energy is the ego. And what we do with the ego is we train it. You know, you go to boot camp, you train it. And ego isn't learned through wisdom over years. The ego repeats until it gets it. And what this says is that we are set up now to train our ego and reprogram our ego to any degree we want if we actually do it. But Saturn in that space will give you the authority. You'll know you have the energy to do it. It'll be your choice if you don't. Now let's look at the moon. The moon, of course, is very important. And for this whole month of Cancer, we're going to talk about the moon a lot more because where the moon is tells you the flavor of the Cancer season. So on Saturday and Sunday, the moon's in Taurus. Yay. That's going to be good for me. But what that also means is that you're going to feel all those efforts of Venus and Uranus. You're going to feel whether or not your heart is opening up to it. You're going to feel whether or not you have accepted an alternative possibility for construction and materialization. You're going to feel just how far your projects have come. And again, this is Cancer. And the lesson of Cancer is it's not that you feel bad. It's that what you do after it. The whole lesson of Cancer is what we do after we feel that way. A lot of people go, I don't want to feel this way ever again. That's not the lesson. You're going to feel stuff again. There's no way around it. Over and over again. It's just a corkscrew spiral up into ascension. So what we have to learn is the best way to respond to ourselves, the best way to keep our feelings neutral and loved and purified and actually like a spiritual blood flow to the rest of our soul. Otherwise, things clot and things go down. So the moon in Taurus means this weekend will be a very solid weekend, a very grounded weekend. But then things start to stir up as we hit on Monday, the moon in Gemini. Now, this is the week, I just want to tell you, where we have a new moon in Cancer. So this is all building back to Cancer. It's all building back to feeling differently about yourself. And so we start to see this when the moon goes into Gemini. When the moon goes into Gemini, we start to feel our crazy thoughts. You might have heard in the beginning of the show, I said, we're not going to worry about what we think. We're going to worry about what we feel. Well, when the moon goes into Gemini, we'll go back to how we felt. So we're going to bring up all those feelings we had about headlines and news and facts and things like that. And so I would say Monday and Tuesday are disruptive. You're going to, if you don't command where your mind goes, your mind can really shake the crib of your inner child, and really, wake your inner child up, scare your inner child. Your mind has to be disciplined. I think on Monday and Tuesday, we're up for a lot of sickness of like your stomach from all of it. Then Wednesday, we begin the countdown to the new moon. Now, this is where you will begin to very quickly reveal, how you really feel about things. You might have been able to deceive yourself up until now about certain things about yourself, but now that the moon moves back into Cancer, it's in pure form. There's nothing else in the way. And this is preparing us for the new moon in Cancer at step 4, which happens on Wednesday, June 25th at 6:31 a.m. Eastern time. Now, step 4 is pretty powerful, and this is going to be a bit of a doozy, folks. That means on Wednesday, which is hump day, people will have emotional breakdowns and emotional breakthroughs. And most people have to have both, all right? Now, some people's emotional breakdown is very simple. They just get really pissed and they, throw their coffee at the wall and they get over it in about 2 hours. Other people go through a breakdown because it's the first time they have ever faced these feelings. And so as a result, their feelings are just breaking down and causing more stirs of their emotion or their ocean of emotion. So this could be a tough new moon. Now, fortunately, a new moon is very quiet. The volume is very quiet. The moon is dark. It's not even in the sky. So I don't think it's going to be a pushing over the cliff. But I will think it will be the last little paper cut that ruined your life kind of thing. So it could be that final push over the edge. Either way, that new moon is a new relationship to your own feelings and that new belonging with your feelings. Step 4 is I belong loving my feelings. That's where I belong, is loving my feelings. Loving my feelings no matter what happens in the world, loving my feelings no matter what I'm scared of, always loving my feelings as a default. Now, that said, there's only a couple more signs we want to talk about, namely Virgo and Pisces. Now, Virgo is what becomes real. And the problem is that Mars this week moves into Virgo. And so our ego is sort of in the forest of reality. And the problem with our ego is like the dumbest part of us. It's sort of like a dumb dog. I love dogs, but it's like a dumb dog that goes wandering off into the street and starts to, chew on some guy's shoes, things like that. And so Mars in that sort of obnoxious push energy, your ego is going to be pushing through reality this week like it's a forest that you have to machete through. You're going to maybe feel your ego might get frustrated that it looks like life will never change. That's not true. What's true is that the pushy part of you is in the most strong part of you. And so you push on your strong part, yes, it's going to feel like it's not moving at all. It's going to feel that way. But you're actually going to see just a little wiggle like you do in a tooth coming out. And you're going to start to see that there is wiggle room here. There is potential here. And to go there and do this, it means we're going to have to let go of some sort of reality we don't belong to. And that's what the South Node is teaching us this week. The South Node goes from 22 Virgo to 21 Virgo, which means the North Node goes from 22 Pisces to 21 Pisces. And what this means in a conscious level is we're all being directed to, first of all, have the breakdown about how we're not happy with our future. Go ahead and say the future that's currently on the pilot is not going to work. You are literally going to have to reject a lot of the things you thought would happen. And I don't know how bad it has to get, but I think most people are so sick of what they see, it's not going to be hard to let go of. But then also the South Node goes to 21 Virgo, and that's going to be where it's hard because you're going to have to reject something you have believed in and something you believed in to be proven real. So if it was proven to you real that this can happen if you do this, and suddenly you can't do that anymore, it's kind of difficult. It's like God, universe, or society is taking away our toys. And so again, there's a lot of potential for the inner child to get upset. The North Node in Pisces, however, says with 22, spiritual miracles are very possible any day if you just change your beliefs about it. So we're being encouraged in spiritual miracles by letting go of what we don't belong to. It's a crazy dynamic, and basically, energetically, it can be done if you go with the flow. Last thing to talk about are the dark planets. First, Black Moon Lilith goes from 9 to 10 degrees Scorpio. This means you will be afraid of making a change in yourself. Any fears you have of changing, any resistance you have of changing, doesn't matter how they were caused or when they happen, they will come to the surface. They're coming to the surface because if you do not face them directly with your heart, then you will find that they pollute everything you want to touch and everything you create. And we can't have that going around. So you have to face the fears. Now, facing the fears means, come on, fear, let's see what you got. Let's see if you can do it. Look, bring me down. Let's try it. And you just sit there in a face off. Eventually the fear goes, it was just a lie. But it's a hard test. Easier said on TV than it's done. Pluto is the other dark planet. And by dark, it means not present. Pluto is retrograde at 3 degrees Aquarius. And that means what's not present right now is any force in the universe to support you in believing yourself. You're getting no support for you to believe in yourself. No one's helping you at all. That's Pluto. Pluto's saying, no, no, humans, it's now time for you to be strong and you to wall off everything that keeps you from believing in yourself. And you go, I don't believe myself because of this thing I did and this mistake I made. Well, you can't let the mistake get in the way anymore. Pluto says, draw a boundary there, make it not. So we have to be strong and stand up. And I think right now, just for some practical advice, you're better off over-believing and looking like an asshole than you are not believing at all. And with those brilliant notes, let's move on to our solar horoscopes.
Did you know that discordant energies such as illness, trauma, violence, and depression can linger on a property for hundreds of years, going all the way back to the very beginning of that parcel of land? This can also happen with family heirlooms, antiques, or again previously owned furniture. If you've been feeling blocked in life, more ill than usual, or again just uncomfortable in your home, your space could be holding onto residual energies. Refresh My Property can help clear these energies remotely. Scan the QR code to get your free phone consultation today and begin clearing your space and your life.
Let's start with the Aries. Aries, you are the leaders of the Zodiac in the sense that you're the first one to do everything. And so you are looking at, in this Sun in Cancer transit, feeling different about yourself. So basically, you must now give yourself the emotional support you needed as a child. You must give yourself the emotional support you wish you had. Forget need, what you wish you had. And to play out that role in your own life for the next week. If you do that, it's going to be no problem. If you do that, you're going to find that your whole life begins to calm down. If you do that, you're going to find by the end of Cancer that you can calm down forever. That this is a permanent change, not a little change. It does mean, however, that you've got to stop responding to the world and only respond to your feelings. So in other words, if someone comes to your door and calls you a jerk, close the door and go into the nursery and start holding the baby. Don't even talk to the person who called you a jerk. This is about you and how you respond to your feelings. And you're the first, because you're the first to everything, you're the first one to probably mess that one up as humans too. Now, Sun square Neptune and Saturn means that your heart, again, is focused on feeling better. All right. So your heart wants to feel better. Your heart wants to be better. But your ego is feeling a supercharge right now with Saturn and Neptune. Neptune is giving you a lot of intuition. I could do this. I could do that. You're starting to realize things, starting to realize where people may be lying to you or dishonest or something like that. And so your ego is also feeling very strong and your feelings are feeling kind of weak. So this conjunction is a lesson for you to realize one works for the other. Your ego and your strength is for the baby. It's not for the world. It's for you and to support you. So there might be something on there might be something where you are triggered on Sunday to have a little bit of a meltdown. And the only reason why you'd have a meltdown is because the ego part of you refuses to nurture the baby. And so you'll find one way or the hard way or the easy way that's what has to happen. Then we have the new moon in Cancer on Wednesday. This is the emotional breakdown. This breakdown would be another fight scene in your family home where one of the parents, your Mars or your Venus, one of the parents was not on the side of loving the baby. You're going to find and discover where you have not loved your inner child, where you've not loved your feelings. It's a hard thing to do. And it'll probably be, because you're Aries, an embarrassing public moment or a moment where important people actually see it too. So that humility is part of Saturn and Neptune in your sign, by the way. So you're being forced to grow strong with humility this time. You're not going to be allowed to grow into something that's supercalifragilistic is what I'm thinking of. But anyways, something super. I mean, you're going to have to do it through humble means. Taurus, you are now expanding your emotional sensitivity and the ability to nurture yourself in your mind. It turns out that feelings are how you manage your thoughts. I know, kind of wacky. Actually, Tauruses have two houses for every consciousness. We can't get into that right now, but I'll tell you, right now for Tauruses, to nurture yourself, you have to focus on your thoughts and you have to focus on your feelings also in Leo. But what this means is that you may not be nice to yourself. You have to be mindful of the way you respond to yourself, because you will always stir your emotional field either up or down or neutral based on what you say to yourself, how you say it, and the words you use. So it's time to become hyper aware in how you talk to yourself. Basically, unhappy cows create bad milk, and you have to be happy and encourage yourself to be at least calm and nurtured and cared for. A lot of the reasons why Tauruses rule security is because security, emotional security, rules their mind. And so if they are emotionally secure, you are mentally stable as well. Tauruses who have problems in their mind It's almost always coming back to a feeling, and the feeling is the issue. And that's why they miss it, because they think it's in the mind. And the science industry says it's in the mind, but it's not. It's in your feelings, which you are playing out in your mind. So it's time now to nurture yourself, respond to yourself and your thoughts. Every thought should be as gentle as a poem that you say to yourself before you go to bed. You got to be really nice and kind to yourself and be that fairy godmother you need, or that fairy godfather that you need. Be that consciousness of watching over yourself by choosing your thoughts. Now, that said, once you do that, once you emotionally nurture yourself and your thoughts, you will actually open up to your potential of genius, because the only thing that blocks you from having brilliant ideas is that you got a stinky feeling in there and you haven't cleared it out. And so you can't see past the feeling in your mind. So if you do this properly in the first 10 days, you're going to start to escalate your thoughts and move through all sorts of logic barriers where you couldn't see the answer, or couldn't come to the answer, or couldn't come to speak up and talk to someone. All these limitations in thinking and processing and communicating are all due to the fact that you are emotionally poor nurtured. So start rich nurturing you and do it today. Now, the first hiccup in the giddy up is, of course, on Sunday, when the sun will square Saturn and Neptune. Saturn and Neptune right now are working for you to stand up and be tall and not be afraid of the past, to have faith in yourself, 100% faith in yourself. But the sun will square that Saturn-Neptune conjunction. And so that means there'll be kind of a tug of war between your mind and the way you think about things and being able to stand up and have faith in yourself. Now, truth be told, I think the mind is the part that has to make some changes, because Saturn is clear. You're going to love yourself and you're committed to it. Neptune's clear. You're going to be empathic and compassionate to your feelings, and you're going to stick to it. Those are heavy, big planets. So the only planet that can change is really the sun and your heart. So in other words, what it's saying in that square is your mind is probably not cooperating enough. That's the part of you that's the most flexible. You have to be more kind, more nurturing to yourself, and probably see something open up. But it does mean that you might have a minor worry attack, because your mind will think something, and you'll certainly go straight to God conscious and ask, is that going to happen really? Am I really doomed? And the answer is no. Your mind's just thinking you are. Now, when it comes to the new moon is powerful for Tauruses, because it's at step 4, which means that your approach to yourself, you are approaching yourself guilty before innocent. You're approaching yourself as a loser before a winner. You're approaching yourself as poor before rich. You are approaching yourself on a side of the mind that the heart wouldn't choose if it had a chance. That means that you're allowing your mind to get in the way of your heart. You're letting your mind to write the show and not asking your heart if it agrees with that or not. And so it could be a mental breakdown for Tauruses on this new moon, or in this, new moon, because, I mean, it's kind of the perfect storm. It's your feelings and it's your thoughts all combined, and you're a loser, says them. Okay. So the good news is that you will get to a place of where you do belong. So I don't feel like this will be a problem going on, but I do think that you should probably be really good to yourself on this new moon. Gemini. Geminis actually use feelings to manage their self-worth. And what that means is that if you feel bad, you're poor. And if you feel good, you're rich. It's that simple. Poor dad, rich dad is for you how you feel. So you don't like to focus on feelings. You like to focus on ideas and stories and details and facts. But unfortunately, we all have to focus on stuff we don't like. Welcome to the party. And in your case, you really have to use that brilliant mind of yours to manage your feelings and nurture your feelings. You must now take good care of yourself. Talk good to yourself. Ultimately, with Cancer, your heart needs to be able to say something nice to yourself, and for your mind not to take it away. I think a lot of what Gemini issue is not thinking positively in the first place. It's that they come back and destroy it with their evil twin. So you have to be conscious of that and not repeat those patterns. I have a little game I play with my son, and this is one of those times where it's like, son, time to think of everything differently. And I was, you're not allowed to use the same words. I don't want to hear the same expressions. Like I would be this Taurus dam that wouldn't let me say things they used to say. Poor kid, that's probably harsh, but I think it made him really quite brilliant, actually, because he thought around things, including around my rules. So it turned out in his favor. But the point is that you must now think differently about your worth. You must now have the mind there. You're a Gemini. Have the mind pointing those feelings in the right direction, encouraging those feelings, being compassionate on those feelings, and providing information so the feelings can feel better, and going out and getting the information for the feelings to feel better. So this whole transit is about feeling better, which then leads to feeling valuable. Geminis do not feel valuable if they feel bad, period. And you lose jobs. I've seen it all the time. I've seen Geminis get fired because they were feeling bad about themselves. And it's just kind of, Geminis are so happy by nature. When they feel bad about themselves, nobody wants you around, right? Like, because you just get like mental, emotional down that pit. But that's all meant to change. That's what this trend is about. So think differently about your feelings and you'll feel valuable and attract money. Say that 10 times. Now, that said, the Sun square Neptune and Saturn square is for you a tug of war between your heart wants to feel better because he can make more money. Now, I will say this. If you're focused on money in this transit, it's valid, but you are letting the cart pull the horse, because until you feel good about yourself, you will not get a raise. You will not make more money. You will not bring more in, period, because you don't think and feel that you deserve it. So it's not going to happen. Don't bother killing yourself trying to do 5, 6, 7 jobs, because if you're not in that state of mind, it's not going to happen. So the sun, when it squares Saturn and Neptune, is bringing up all your feelings about your worthiness or not worthiness. And Neptune and Saturn is focusing on, frankly, your career. And so this will be sort of a moment where the career part of you might say, you got to push hard. Who cares how you feel? Doesn't matter if you haven't slept. Let's do it. And the answer is no. Just because you're going to get to work faster and get paid faster, that doesn't make you feel emotionally good about yourself. That makes you feel worn out, tired, stretched. So you learn some real master lessons with this actual square. I'm curious to see what you say afterwards. The next is, of course, the new moon in Cancer. The new moon in Cancer for you is a new soul economy. You're going to accept the fact that you actually do feel you're worth a lot. And you feel so worth it, you can talk about it. A lot of Geminis could not, hiring Geminis, interviewing Geminis, they could not tell me what they wanted for their salary. They just couldn't. And now I think you can. Now I feel you can. So the new moon is the implementation of accepting the fact that you're the reason why you're not getting offered good jobs. You're the reason why you're not making the money, because your attitude and your emotions are creating what you don't want. That new moon, though, is a magic beam, because once you realize your feelings are everything to the formula, I would hope that you start to walk down that line and go forward with it and begin to then manifest some really cool things as a result. Cancers! Happy birthday, Cancers! You are in a place now to transform yourself and your image 100%. And you may or may not know this. If you know this, forgive me, but you need a reminding. I'll put it that way. Your feelings actually manage your personality. I know you think or feel that your feelings are inside of you, and they are, but they actually drive your ego. Cancers are very egotistical about their feelings. Very. Their ego is there to defend their feelings, to defend them all the way. But if you're defending them because you think the power is outside of you, which is what egos always do, egos always blame the weather, egos always blame the time, blame the mayor, blame the politics. Egos always blame. It's a blame game. So if your ego is blaming other things besides you for feeling bad, you're not going to graduate this particular moment, because you have to understand the nature of the universe, and that is that you are the one who is creating those feelings. Your actions make you feel good or feel bad. So for Cancers, the only way to feel good about yourself is to act it. You have to actually follow through and do it. You have to do it. It's not enough to think it or know it or anything else. So this is about Cancers changing their behavior. And their behavior is changing to where they are now doing things and taking actions that they would do with a baby. They know full well if you go for a walk, you're going to feel better. You know full well if you eat your food, you're going to feel better. You're born knowing you're a Cancer. So this birthday period is a huge dynamic, because you're now in a place where you can completely change the way you act, the way you behave, the way you respond, and the way people see you. It's huge. It's a total quantum makeover. To help you out, God has sent Jupiter, the focus of all collective conscious wisdom. And so you will have the wisdom when you go to yourself, I don't know how to respond to this. Jupiter's going to go, you can this way, this way, this way. They give you different ideas, almost like AI. Jupiter's like the AI, but smarter. So you are changing your character by changing the way you respond to yourself, by changing the way you respond to feelings. You don't freak out to the feelings. You act like an adult, and you actually be there like a parent to yourself instead of being there as an abandonment to yourself. And this is complicated, and this is, your entire life being reworked. But I honestly feel when Jupiter's out of Cancer, whoa, we're not going to recognize you. So it's worth the effort. Now, when it comes to the square, the Sun square Neptune, Sun square Saturn Neptune, this square for you is whether or not your actions with yourself are loving or not. And if your actions with yourself are loving, it may have some holdup, okay, in the areas of your career and your intentions. So every time your ego says, I feel I should do this, your ego might step back and go, no, or the control part of you might step back and go, no, who gave you permission for that? So in other words, you have to kind of work out in that square that you're giving yourself permission to do all this, that you don't owe anyone anything. You don't have to ask permission from anyone else. You have to ask permission from yourself. And there's a real lesson when it comes to asking permission from yourself. You're asking your heart, you're asking the parts of yourself that sometimes you might have ignored, right? Just like that husband or wife did you, right? The reflection of it. Now, that all said, moving forward, you are now up for, with the new moon in Cancer, a new way of relating to yourself at large. And so this means that you are going to just get along with you better than you ever have in life. If you know how to respond to yourself with emotional care, and you know that your response to yourself is what makes you emotional, not the outside world is making you emotional. You're making you emotional because when the outside world does something, you either are nice to yourself or not. And this new moon, I think, is the seed of magic and power for Cancers if you accept yourself for who you are and you don't judge in that new moon. Leos, this is a toughie, and I actually forgot until this moment. Shit, I have a Leo rising. This is a clearing out of your closets. That's right. No more cobwebs in the closets. And the thing is that for Leos and Leo risings, which is what I am, you use emotion to store past life memory. So past life memory is stored in your feelings, which means, yes, every time you have any feeling, it's including the past life feeling without a doubt. Leos stack up all their karma in every feeling they have without a doubt. And this is one of the reasons why you have to quantify and understand and draw circles around those feelings and, be able to look at them as 1,000 little pieces instead of a giant tidal wave that could kill you. You've cleared out actually the bad stuff in your karma already. So you've already addressed the boogeyman and all the bad things, but you're still in the habit of letting the past rule your present. You're still in the habit of letting your past, ruin the mood, So this next month is about building faith from emotional calm, reserve, and care. The more you care for yourself, the more faith you'll have, period. And this faith will stick beyond moments where the power goes out or things happen you can't control. These moments of faith will stick. They're lifelong. You've never had this much of a big investment in lifelong faith. That tells you, though, that you're about to do some killer shit. Because when the sun goes into Leo, you're going to be moving out in your birthday period with all this incredible faith behind you, which I've never seen a Leo have, right? Except for a child Leo, one that's still in their heart from their past life. So Leos are doing the gut clearing and the karma clearing that holds their vibration down, that keeps them from really shining bright. Now, that said, the square between the sun squaring Saturn and Neptune means that your heart, it wants to love itself and wants to respond to itself in that sense and wants to be there for itself. But every now and then you stop believing in yourself. Your heart stops to believe. It stops to think about it. And so as a result, you end up sabotaging this instead of empowering it. Okay. So you have to be mindful that your heart cannot, crap on yourself to the point where you stop believing. You've got to be strong in your beliefs and determine your beliefs, and you've got to love yourself in the front door too. So that's a moment of just finding your strength, probably in a moment of weakness. Now, the new moon for you is at step 6 Cancer. And so what that means is you are going to find the perfect semblance of feeling good in yourself. You're going to feel karma free. You're going to feel guilt free. Guilt free is a big one. You should not feel guilty. You could not feel guilty in the future. Let's put it that way. You could not feel guilty in the future. You must feel good about who you are, which means you're going to clear the plate. And I think for Leos, it's just about accepting it. You got away with it, or you're okay. It's not a big problem, but you haven't relaxed. You haven't let it go. And so this new moon is about letting it go. And it could create, because it's step 4, a breakdown that spooks you, because you may not even realize, since this is subconscious energy and your connection to spirit, you may not even realize you have a problem there. It's your subconscious. It's like some dragon living in the basement. So it's okay. You just have to be nurturing and okay. And what you're going to learn is the type of emotional tone you must live on your spiritual side all the time. That's what you learn. Virgos. Virgo, you are changing your emotional feelings about your social ambition. I think most Virgos were born on the planet thinking that they had to please the earth, that they were not good enough. Part of that is because you overthink things and you're too analytical, and you're throwing in details I would never allow in a competition. It's kind of like looking at it like a tap dance competition and then giving one of the students a bad score because they drove up in a Honda. It's like, it has nothing to do with it, but somehow you might find a way to bring the Honda to the child. The point is that this is all not necessary, and it would not be necessary if you just approached your career and your place in society from how it feels. And I know you've had some problems there too. I think that people have been beat up. You've been beat up at reputation, or you're the one picked on in school. So you have public problems where your feelings were hurt, but they only stayed hurt because you did not focus your healing energy on repairing them or healing them. I'll remind you, Virgos are natural born healers, period. You're going to use that healing energy to hurt yourself and create sickness. We're going to use that energy to heal yourself. So you have all the tools and no excuses at all. It's now time to make yourself feel comfortable in the world. It's your job to feel comfortable in the world. It's not their job to change their rules for you. It's your job to feel comfortable in the world. And when you get that down, then your worry of the world turns into your leadership of the world. So if people aren't listening to you, Virgos, because they're not feeling you, they're not feeling you because you're not feeling the world. So if there's an emotional connection to your society, you will not have any real net effect that is long lasting in society. So the reason why you haven't gotten the things you've wanted in the world is because you didn't feel like you wanted it. Even though you said your mind did, you did, but your feelings did not feel like it. And so it moved on. All right. Now, that said, with the sun squared Neptune and Saturn, this means there'll be sort of a showdown about loving yourself in the world, and it will likely involve some sort of a major boundary trigger. That means that you'll probably be told to, like, you'll be in gym class and they'll be like, okay, strip down naked and get in the pool. And like, what? Like some sort of just egregious, like some sort of insane call of your trust in yourself. Now, the truth is it's a perfect trap. It's a booby trap, because obviously you want to trust yourself, but don't think it's because of what you're doing in the future. In society, you're going to trust yourself. You're going to trust yourself in society because you nurture your feelings. You're not going to trust yourself in society because you do something, right? So this is going to bring up this square. It's going to bring up where you really get stuck in certain things. The new moon in Cancer, however, is going to be wonderful, because this is going to show you exactly how you need to feel about yourself out there in the world, how you ought to feel about yourself all the time in the world. This is how you ought to feel. In other words, how should you show up to the world in the first place? And that's really something to think about. Virgo, you have your hyper analyst and all these types of things. How should you feel when you show up to the party? Should you feel like you've been through hell? Should you feel very pleasant in addition to the party? You're not really thinking about the emotions that you bring to stink up the room in certain situations, and that's because you're ignoring them for yourself. So why would you think about how it would smell for the other room? So it's a powerful moment for Virgos to really get on their true power path. Libra, you are now changing your feelings about your career, feelings about your power, feelings about your potentials of leadership. And this is kind of obvious, but maybe not so obvious. You use emotion to manage your career. You feel if it's going out of whack. You feel if this boss started to turn on you. You feel if this boss has opportunity. You can feel these things because you're A, connected to people, and secondly, you use emotion to make decisions. You're the opposite of Aries. Aries makes decisions with Saturn. You make decisions with the moon. So your feelings are what help you decide. You feel confident about a decision when it feels right. And I know your Libra mind is like, but I don't have the details. I don't have the facts. I don't have the evidence. Doesn't matter. If you feels right, that's the way to go. So that's been the problem for some Libras. They just can't believe that it's that silly and that easy. But for most Libras, the issue has been that you have all of your pain stored in your emotions. And so if you have pain stored in your emotions, how the hell are you going to find the right way to go? If anything, you're going to only know the way to not go. And that's been the problem. Libras have mostly not gone. They've been mostly not going to where they're supposed to go, which is a joke, but we say, don't ask a Libra for directions. This is why, because if they're emotionally clouded in that moment, they're going to take you somewhere like, a prison or something. So you must now respond to your feelings, nurture your feelings. They are your instrument. They are your ability to navigate the road. And if you feel good, you're going to find the good places. If you feel bad, you're going to find the bad places. But once you understand to polish your compass is the way to go, nothing will be able to stop you. Now, the other side of this that's worth noting is when you show up to the table emotionally calm, everyone else is the crazy one. And that's your secret weapon. When a Libra is calm and they feel good, everyone else does not feel as good as them. It's kind of an inside-out, passive-aggressive way of taking over. So the better you feel, the more power you have, is what I'm basically saying. Now, that said, the new moon in Cancer is actually going to be a new approach to yourself about how you accept that you've got the right direction. Okay, so the problem with you at the moment, now 6 is your number, okay? Number 6 is you. So you are literally reprogramming the Libra step number in the 10th house. You're reprogramming. All Libras are reprogramming for the whole earth right now in this moment. The issue is that you don't accept the answer that you get. So if you tell a Libra no, they're like, I can't accept that. The reason why you can't accept that is because your mind actually tried to accept it. Your feelings was not asked to accept it. So basically, you're learning how to accept yourself and your decisions by measuring your feelings, not your thoughts. If it feels okay, it's okay. If it doesn't feel okay, it needs some adjustment. And that's what the new moon will teach you. Scorpio! We're getting to the gritty Scorpios. Scorpio, you use emotion to focus on, in essence, how you love or don't love, okay? So you are a person who, your love, first of all, comes from Pisces, but you don't believe in it without the Cancer. You have to feel good to believe. That's who you are. Now, that's common. That's in the actual formula of belief. What your heart feels is what's true, okay? So you've had 2 things that have kept you from believing in yourself. One, a broken heart, which we kind of healed with the sun and Pisces and that sort of thing, or at least we dried up most of the big puddles. And then secondly, even if your heart wants it and you feel bad, well, you don't believe it's possible. And so Scorpios are quite skeptical, mostly because they feel like shit that day. So your skepticism is directly tied to your feelings. And so if you show up in the classroom, you'll learn nothing. If you feel bad in the classroom, you'll learn nothing. If you feel bad in the classroom, you'll teach nothing. You're completely blown out of the education water if you're having a bad day. For Scorpios to see that truth that they can kill with a stinger, they've got to feel good in the first place. So the first thing you feel good about is believing in yourself. Does your heart believe in yourself? Ask your feelings. Does my heart feel like I believe in myself? If your heart says anything like have a bit of a hippity hump or feels bad, gets sick, anything, no. The answer is no. Does that mean I don't believe myself? No, it means you don't nurture yourself. So you have to nurture yourself to feel good for you to believe in anything. And this is kind of good. I think if you had a bunch of Scorpio army on the earth that could sting you and kill you, yeah, they should question their beliefs and they're having a bad day. Yes, they should. That's called the safety on a gun. But at the end of the day, it might be holding you back. And that's the issue. And that's what's upgrading with Jupiter into space now. So that said, the square between Saturn, Neptune, and the Sun for you is an entanglement of if you are nurturing your feelings so that you can believe. So are you nurturing your feelings so you believe? Because Saturn and Neptune and Aries is saying, my life sucks. I want to be happy now. And so you get this pressure inside yourself to be happy now, but you can't be happy now if you don't feel you can deserve it, if you don't feel that you believe it, etc. So this would be a point where you might like try to override some steps to try to get your bill passed. Like, we've got to buy this bike. It doesn't matter. Well, we haven't processed the emotion. You tend to push reality really hard. And that's why people love you or hate you. It's because you push so hard. But you shouldn't push unless you believe, and you shouldn't believe unless you have feelings, and you shouldn't say shouldn't. So at the end of the day, you're going to learn that your feelings are what guide you to your truth. If you feel good, then you know what you believe in. If you don't feel good, then you don't know what you believe in. And that turns into all sorts of obstacles and changes inside of yourself. Now, the new moon in Cancer at 6 degrees means that you are going to ultimately create this new relationship where you default believe. That's what I was thinking. It's a default belief. My default now will be that I do believe in myself. So, Scorpios want to like prevent things from happening, but now it's the time to go, you know what? You're better off assuming you're right and then seeing who tries to talk you out of it. See who tries to even get in front of you on a bad day. The answer will be nobody. Well, you don't want to be the emperor with no clothes, but you won't. The problem is that you've been shutting yourself down too much. And then the world proves you right, because that's how reality works. So open up, accept your belief as default. Sagittarius! Went blank there for a moment. Sag, you use emotion for sex. Seriously. Use emotion to draw lines with other things. You feel it out. So if I go, hey, Sag, can I borrow this and take that? Sag will feel it out. Feels okay to me. There was no logic there. And that's funny because they're so logical. They're so educational. They have all these things that they do. And yet, when it comes to whether or not can I sleep with you, it's just a feeling, right? That's why they do well around the world. Because feelings go, it's okay, right? So you use feelings to create boundaries. Now, here's the danger of that. If you use feelings to create boundaries, well, then if you feel bad, what are you going to do? Push people back to Timbuktu? What do you do? Kill them? Like, where does the boundary get drawn when you're emotionally upset? And a lot of you actually try to deny. You actually abuse this part of yourself. The part of you that can draw a boundary, you just draw a boundary on the feeling itself. Like, oh, I'll turn the boundary on you. I don't feel you. Ha. And you go off and you have a great party night and you wake up with a hell of a hangover. Part of that hangover is the booze. Part of the hangover is the repressed emotion. So it's now time to make your feelings feel safe. And the only way you'll make your feelings feel safe is through boundaries. If you feel safe looking over a 10-story building, you feel safe looking over a 20, where do you feel safe? It's calculatable. You just have to do it and then see how you feel. So you have to calculate through feelings where all the lines are, with your husband, with your wife, everything, all your children, what feels right. And give yourself permission to change if it feels different tomorrow. You don't have to stick to it because it's a principle of the mind and you want to be known as smart. Yes, you want to be known as smart. Well, you're smart because when it was wrong, you changed it. So I think you're also reversing how you think of right and wrong because you've been drawing the line with something besides your feelings, which is what you were designed to do. So I think once a Sag is feeling good, watch out. Because when a Sag feels good, they are bulletproof. And they've got that darling personality that will charm the pants off of everyone, literally. And so they're real dangerous when they have no doubts about their lines because they will just do whatever they want and see if someone stops them. They're almost as courageous as Scorpio, which is why they're together side by side. Now, that said, Sagittarius in this process will have the square like everyone else. And the square between Saturn, Neptune, and the Sun is that your heart wants to feel safe and wants to feel secure. And that's a trust boundary issue. So with Cancer energy, you're feeling that you can trust yourself or not. But because it's squaring your heart and your relationship to your inner child, because the other mandate for Sagittarius is you got to have Peter Pan has got to go home. Sorry, you can't fly anymore, kid. Time to grow up. So Peter Pan and Wendy are being grounded, literally. And that means that it's time for them to have fun. The Peter Pan and Wendy story was that they were avoiding their childhood to have fun. You have to include your inner child to have fun. And so you're being encouraged to include your inner child with everything, which you'll be able to do if your emotions can actually lighten up and stop worrying about things that feel fine. And so you can see where this may all build up to, right? If you understand how to trust yourself emotionally, you can apply that to your inner child. You know how to trust your inner child. That's the lesson I believe. Now, that said, we have the new moon at step 6, but step 6 in the house of trust and intimacy. I think what's going to happen is you're going to find this perfect sweet elixir feeling that makes you feel like you can trust yourself and never look back. So I think you're going to get a permanent kind of like pass to get through yourself, like a permanent pass that goes, it's okay. We're fine. Let her through. I know who she is, or I know who he is. It means you're going to have an openness and a free breathing with walls that are very strong. So you're not going to have any quivers anymore that they can come down, because you know what makes a good wall for you, a strong feeling that is backed up by you with boundaries and things like that. So the new moon is great. I think you're going to trust yourself as a result. I think that trust will lead to purchases and consciousness that you now go off and purchase. All right, Capricorns. It sounded like an Irish Capricorn. Capricorn, you are going to be focusing on your relationships to yourself. Basically, you have been emotionally immature with yourself. That means you have let yourself feel bad, or you blamed other people, or you made everyone else feel bad because you felt bad. Dark stuff that our parents did, basically. You are the parent of the Zodiac. So yeah, the dark stuff your parents did, yep, that's what you've been stuck in. First with yourself, playing those games on yourself because it seemed to work from your parents playing it on you. So why not try? And you did, and exhausted it. With Pluto going through your sign, though, if you're still here watching this, you're going to be fine. Everyone who was not going to be fine would have died, actually, with Pluto and Scorpio. It's Pluto and Capricorn. And I had many Capricorn friends that did pass, actually, that come to mind right now. So don't worry there. Don't go to that place. But realize that you have got to always be babying yourself. So if you think of Capricorn as this like amazing, Sears and Roebuck executive, I'm using things from the 80s. Oh, well, then the only reason they're a great executive is because they're back inside when they go to the executive bathroom, they're constantly, taking care of themselves or nurturing themselves or getting back rubs that makes them feel good, getting all the things that makes them feel good, because they know that their power is based on their emotional security with themselves. So once you feel secure with yourself, you're going to start to expand this new security option with everyone, which means you listen to your feelings when you're in front of your wife. You listen to your feelings when you're in front of your dog. You listen to your feelings when you're in front of your child. You listen to your feelings when you're in front of them. That's where you're headed backwards. It's you that has to feel good in that relationship. It's your job to make you feel good. You cannot base it on the interaction of the two parties. So this is amazing because this frees Capricorns from codependency. And that's what you've been stuck in since the day I knew you, back in Atlantis. So you're changing now in that sense, and you're, massaging yourself out of the situation. But the square brings another candidate here with the square to the sun and Neptune and Sun and Saturn. Sun, Saturn, Sun, Neptune. That's correct. That energy of Aries actually hits you with your emotions themselves. So you're going to have to take that self-nurturing past the moment you're fighting with your wife all the way to you fighting with your mom. You've got to take it all the way down where you nurture, and you nurture all the way back into your childhood. And you imagine in childhood been different. If you done that in childhood, imagine if your mom been different. You just got to keep going. You've got to drill all the way down to the base of the mountain to make this filling fill. Otherwise, you're going to have that cavity of neglect. Now, the new moon, I think, is going to be lovely. You're basically going to get remarried to yourself. Step 6 is your marriage degree. You're going to get remarried. A lot of marriages get remarried, and you're going to get remarried. It means you're going to have to walk down the aisle with new terms and conditions of the way you'll treat yourself. And what will be based on? Your feelings. That's what we'll be based on. We'll be based on the annual report card. We'll be based on how much money you made. Be based on, do you feel good? Good. You're doing a good job. That's it. So, you've got to be appreciative of the simple stuff. But that new moon is the start of Capricorns really getting how to soothe themselves, how to find peace, and how to find harmony. And by the way, if you've ever met a Capricorn who was greedy or cheated you out of something, it's because they cheated themselves out of something a long time ago. Aquarius. Oh my God, Aquarius, I got to tell you, you've been changing more than any sign. I think it's really interesting to watch. I didn't have this. We sure as hell didn't see Capricorn change and Pluto hit Capricorn, not even after it left. But like with you, I'm seeing change in major. Pluto's only going 3 degrees, and I see Capricorns, Aquarius is having completely different lives. Now, emotion for you is how you manage the moment. So, they say Aquarius is electricity, but you live in water. You live in water. You live in emotion. Your life is water. Everything's watery. That's why you cut and run, you ghost, because you want out of there. You don't have to deal with the emotion of the present. You avoid conflict. You avoid weird energies and weird situations. And that's because you can't evolve. You don't know how to handle emotions. You don't know how to cope with emotions. So this is going to be the upgrade with Jupiter and Cancer and everything else. You're going to learn how to treat yourself like a kid, like a baby, and like an adult. Like you're going to grow up emotionally in the daily life. Now, a lot of Aquarius play this out with work and daily life. Like Aquarius can be wonderful at home and be a bitch at work, or a bastard at work, whichever gender, whatever you want to apply to that, or vice versa. They're great in work and they come home and they yell at the family. Because one has to be the escape, one of them. It doesn't matter. The issue is that you have to nurture yourself in either place. So if the problem has to be nurtured on the fly in the moment. And because this energy also rules your health, you will go down if you don't feel healthy. You will. Your body cannot handle it. So it's very important that you nurture your feelings to stay healthy and also to evolve and ascend and whatnot. Now, that said, by nurturing your feelings, you're going to find you create a greater life. If you've been stuck in this old, home that you want to get out of, if you've been stuck in this car, you can't buy a new one. It all changes when you nurture yourself. You give yourself the feelings, the emotional support that you need. But when that square happens, okay, with Aries, that square with Saturn, Neptune, and Aries to the Sun in Cancer is ultimately a fight between your reality and your mind. Part of how you've survived this whole time of being like a weird wizard with secrets of the universe and not telling anyone and still somehow fitting in is because your mind is so damn strong. You have Aries in the third house. So your mind is strong. It's egotistical. It is absolute. But that doesn't mean it can take over the feelings. So your mind might have this a good example of this would be, you say to yourself, I'm going to go on a diet. And your mind's like, that's right. We're going to eat nothing for a week. It's like, that's a little intense. And that's the thing that your mind does. It kind of goes a little there. It kind of goes there. It goes to a little intense moment. And so what this square is saying is like, you cannot allow an intense moment of the mind to screw up how you feel right now. You'll have to make it a lighter diet. You'll have to lighten up on yourself. So I think there's a lot of lightening up on yourself because you're finally including your own feelings in the moment. Now, that said, the new moon for you is ultimately a new relationship to your body. Your body and you need to make up. You don't realize it, but by letting the baby cry in the crib for years, and I mean, you went out of town, okay? Like you left the country and that baby was crying. You all got a lot of healing to do in the sense of coming back together and really appreciating your body for what it is and what it gives you and how it's the embodiment of your soul and how you are actually nurturing it and feeding it. And so I think there's going to be a come to Jesus or a come to Yeshua when it comes to how you feel about you and your body. But that is going to be awesome because if you feel good in the moment, everything feels good. So you're going to find and learn how to synergize and equalize the energies of Aquarius in the moment using emotion. And that's what it is. You need to know. How does an Aquarius wizard stir the universe into a miracle? You emotionally manipulate it. You emotionally influence it. If you don't have your feelings online and working for you, you're not going to be able to do your magic and change the world. You're not going to innovate. You're not going to inspire because we won't feel it and we won't care. But I think it's going to work out for you. Trust me. I've seen the bugs. The Pisces. I like to say it that way. Pisces is interesting because you would never know it, but Pisces are supposed to be in love with every moment all the time. You have Leo in the 6th house. Leo in the 6th house says you're going to just shine and twinkle and Lord Jesus, you're supposed to have that energy of just being connected. And oh my gosh, it's like Christ consciousness. You're supposed to be and light up like a light bulb. That's Leo in the 6th. But the problem is that if your actual child is not feeling good, it ain't going to happen. And your child is ruled by how it feels. So if you feel bad, you're not able to shine the light. You're not able to connect to God. You're not able to get your things done. A lot of Pisces have not been able to create and light cast and materialize what their heart wants because they haven't taken any time to make themselves feel good. You actually use Gemini to rule your feelings. And so this last transit with Jupiter and Gemini hopefully has shown you that your thoughts can be shitty and cruel and poorly designed. And the things you say to yourself does not make you feel better. And you have to learn some poetry and some art there. And I think you have with Jupiter in the space. So as you graduate this idea of this realization that your ideas set yourself up for poor emotion, and then your inner child then runs off the cliff, the two working together in combination is what brings you down. You must have a solid mindset about how you feel, and then you must carry out and let your heart feels what it wants to feel with Cancer there. And then if your heart feels what it wants to feel on its own, then when you go to work, you'll be that shining bright light. So you're learning it's quite complicated with Pisces. But of course, it's complicated with Pisces. They're the farthest from reality. They are the high consciousness of God. You got to pull that air balloon down pretty hard, have a lot of focus to be a strong, grounded Pisces. Now, that said, the square, however, is going to be probably a bit of a triumph, but also a trouble, because that square goes to the house of Aries, which for you is your self-worth. You sort of blame your self-worth on if you pulled it off or didn't. So if you did it, you did the job, you're worthy. If you didn't do the job, you're not worthy. And that's the dimension of where you work. Well, what if you did the job, learned everything, the job closed, so you couldn't keep it anyways? Are you still worthy? See, you haven't applied that kind of depth to it because it's the ego. It's not very deep. So this square is going to challenge your ideas and feelings about what self-love really is and whether or not you're behind yourself or not. You know, if you are really loving yourself with Cancer and feeling good, you're going to feel valuable. And that square is going to reveal it's because you weren't feeling good that you didn't get the job, because you weren't feeling good that you didn't ask for enough money. It's because you weren't feeling good that you got robbed from. So that square will be a difficult one, but I think a strong one that you need. Then the new mirage, what was it? The new moon, I'm all over the map. The new moon is actually the reuniting of you and your inner child. So Pisces have been taking life seriously from the day they were in the womb. All right. That's because you have the heavy burdens of all your karma on you. It has been easy for you to be nice to yourself. You were born in a bad mood. You were born in a bad mood. Ask any mother of a Pisces, right? And it's because you're irritable about the past lives, the things that you're remembering. You're not like other souls that can block it. You always were one with that stuff. So from the very beginning, you and your inner child have been kind of bitter and pissed. And that's what leads to alcoholism and other things that you've gone through and codependency and that sort of stuff. But I think this new moon at 6 is actually a moment where you finally make up with that inner child. And that means you come back to your inner child and you say, I'm sorry, I wasn't there. I didn't know. I was preoccupied by stuff from Rome and Atlantis and other things. And I'm so sorry, hon. I'll be there for you now. That's the new moon for step 6 Cancer. Extremely powerful and making peace with Pisces. I think this is the moment where you do follow down the Christ conscious path, which is that you are here to heal yourself, forgive yourself, and then shine super bright because you love yourself so much, you kind of look like Christ consciousness because you are. Well, friends, I just went on some sort of a vortex. I don't even know what day it is, but I'm grateful to be here for you right now. And it's exciting times, even though it sounds kind of dramatic. They're just feelings. They won't kill you, but they'll feel like you're dying. Remember to nurture yourself and bring in the love. And we'll see you next week with more. I love you. Live, love, be.